All right, so today we're going to be setting up proportions. First off, let's go ahead and let's go over the definition of a proportion. A proportion is two equivalent, which means equal, fractions or ratios, can be used to make predictions with ratios. So if we have our example here, we have 2 boys versus 3 girls. Remember, ratios compare two things. So we have 2 boys to 3 girls, and then we're trying to find how many boys there would be if there were 15 girls. So notice here with the proportion, we have our labels next to each number. We can't leave our numbers naked. We have to put clothes on them by putting labels, right? And remember, we use a scale factor to solve for the x, okay? But today, all we're going to do is we're going to set up the original ratio, and let's look at the labels. So I'm going to read. It says, at H-E-B, 3 pounds of apples cost $4. How much would 18 pounds of apples cost? Now we want just the original ratio. And usually you're going to find that in your first sentence, okay? Notice my labels are already set up because labels are important. Without labels, we'd have no idea what that number represents. So I see 3 pounds. So this is our original ratio. 3 pounds of apples cost $4. This is what we are originally talking about. So here we would put 3 with the pounds, and the cost is $4. So our original ratio here is 3 pounds cost $4. Okay, the 18 has nothing to do with the original ratio, but we'll get back later on what to do with that 18. Okay, all right, now let's look at the next one here. Again, we're going to focus on just setting up that original ratio. And if you notice, my labels are already done for me. We're going to be comparing wins to losses. Okay, so wins to losses. Okay, it says for every 3 games a chess player wins, he loses 6. If he wins 18 games in a tournament, how many games does he lose? All right, so right now we're just going to focus on the original ratio. Remember, the original ratio you're usually going to find in that first sentence. So right here, right in here, is where we can find that original ratio. It says for every 3 games a chess player wins. So 3 games he wins. So next to the wins, we want to make sure we put our 3. He loses 6. So we're going to put 6 next to loses. And all we did was set up the first part of our proportion, which is our original ratio. Okay? All right, now let's look at the bottom 2. Okay? So I'm going to look at my first sentence to find my original ratio. It says the ratio of fiction to nonfiction books in the library is 3 to 5. If there are 240 nonfiction books in the library, how many fiction books are in the library? So first off, remember, before we put numbers, we need to put labels. We need to close our numbers and make sure we know what we are talking about. So here we are talking about fiction. To non-fiction. Okay, so fiction to non-fiction. It says the ratio of fiction is said first, to non-fiction, which is said second, is 3 to 5. Now, because fiction is said first, that means the 3 goes with the fiction. And non-fiction is said second, so that means the 5 goes with the non-fiction. Okay, this is our original ratio. That should always go in the first part of our proportion. The original ratio is 3 fiction for every 5 non-fiction. Okay, and like I said, you're going to find that original ratio usually always in your first sentence. Okay, now let's look at this last one here. It says, at Jarrett Middle School, 2 out of 7 students walk to school each day. If a class of 35 students, how many walk to school each day? So remember, we're just looking for the original ratio, which we're normally going to find in that first sentence. We're finding that it's 2 out of 7. Okay, well, what did 2 out of 7 mean? So we can have the fraction or the ratio 2 out of 7. But if we don't know what 2 and 7 mean, then these numbers are naked numbers. We need to clothe them, right? So it says at Jarrett Middle School, 2 out of 7 students walk. That means 2 represents students who walk. And here, the 7 represents the total students. And sometimes it's always not cut and dry exactly what they mean. But here, if we are talking about students who walk, that means the 2 is going to be represented by walk. And the out of, the word out of, this one's usually going to be your total. Because it's saying 2 out of 7. So 2 would be your part, and 7 would be your total, okay? So here it even states, it says of, the label is at the end, and the second number is always the total. So remember, she saw that 5 out of 7 pins were red. So we would write our original ratio, again, as 5 out of 7. That's our original ratio. So remember here, red would be our part, and our total would be the 7, just like we talked about in the last one, okay?